Welcome to A Southern Girl Talks Back, Conversations with My 95-Year-Old Grandmother. I am your host, Jake Pasco. This is episode 2. So we did 2 of these. Excellent. So if you haven't already, you should check out the first episode, which you can get either on YouTube or whatever podcasting platform you listen to, as A Southern Girl Talks Back is the name of it. Unfortunately, we do not have video of the first episode. It's just audio. You can still check it out on YouTube, but there won't be actual video of the conversation, just the audio of the conversation itself. Good news is subsequent episodes will have video, so that's really cool. So if you haven't checked it out, I would encourage you to do so, simply because like every conversation that we have sort of ties back in with the one that we had the week before, just because we forget stuff, man. We're talking about a 95-year-old woman trying to remember her life. There are little pieces that we leave out and that you remember, in the following week as we think about the stories that we kind of talked about. So I'll have follow-up questions that I should have asked, or she'll have little pieces that she realized that she should have mentioned. Or we have, audience and family members who watch this and have questions that they want to know the answers to, so we can sneak them in. If you have questions for either me, I don't know why you would have questions for me, or for Graham, you can email jake@jakepasco.com, and I will make sure to ask them. So that's it. Enjoy episode 2. Here it is. Okay, so last time we talked about a lot of stuff, but we did have some viewer/listener audience questions that we needed to follow up with. So, a couple of things. And you have some stuff that you want to talk about too, right?
Yeah.
You have some follow-up.
Some things we didn't say last time.
Okay. You want to go first? Say what you want to say? Anything you feel like we missed?
Well, just in my early years.
Okay. Like what?
Well, when there were black people around, which we didn't have many, they lived on each end of the town. There would be a little settlement, a neighborhood of black people.
How big was the town?
Oh, my goodness. It was a filling station, we called them instead of gas stations, a hardware store, a post office, and a few, one or two other stores.
Mm-hmm. Like how many? What's like the population? How many people live there?
I don't know, 500
Yeah,
maybe. It would be. I just don't know how many people.
That's good. That's a good estimation.
Yeah. I'm thinking about in the school where there were more people than any other place.
Okay, so you're saying, you have your town, and then you said more or less on kind of each end of the town, there's a predominantly black neighborhood on each end?
Yeah.
Okay. And then was it, did everybody go to the same school and that sort of stuff?
No, that's the thing. They were not allowed in the schools. They had a school they attended. I have no idea where it was or how many people were there, but they did go to school. And they would come to town, that we call that town, the little area that those few stores.
Right.
And the school was within a block or two of that. But they couldn't shop in the stores in the daytime. And years later, I found out that the one main store where we bought groceries and fabric and they had everything, a general store, I guess you might call it. And I found out that the owner of that store, Mr. Broadway, would open his store and let the black people come in at night and do their shopping.
Wow.
I didn't know that at the time.
Was that against the law of him to do that? Do we have any idea?
I don't know if there was a law, what the law said about it.
I imagine he wouldn't have to do that if he didn't want to.
Yeah,
right?
out of the goodness of his heart, or maybe he wanted
more money.
They needed
right?
They needed a place to shop.
Of
for
course,
everything.
yeah. So anything else about that? Anything else about the black neighborhoods versus the rest of the town?
Well, if I was going to say, if I happened to be in town walking along there, if there was a black person in on the sidewalk, the area, we had no sidewalks, in the path, they would, if they saw you coming, they would step aside. They made sure that they did.
Wow.
Well, yeah.
This is when you were a little kid.
Yeah, when I was little.
Wow, that's crazy.
Up through school, through high school, we just didn't have them in. They weren't there.
That's crazy. Anything else you want to say about that?
We had an old lady who came, Emma, who came to our house and would help my mother with the laundry and with whatever she might need to do. She would come and ask Mama if she could get vegetables to take. And she worked for other people too, so she couldn't make a garden if she's busy all day. And her little girl would come and play with me, Rosalie.
How old were you at that point?
About 7, because she was in school. Maybe I was 6, 6 and 7 along. She was a year older than I was, and she knew more songs that she had learned at school, and games that I didn't know how to play, and we had a great time.
I mean, at that age, it's hard to obviously just remember and put everything in context, but is it just like this is my new friend? Is it something where it's like, why doesn't she go to the same school as us? Like, were you aware of those kinds of
no
inequalities or inequities?
If I asked that, we might have discussed that. I don't remember.
Okay.
But she ended up going to college and was a school teacher. And she had 2 big brothers who, they were big. And they would, we never played ball with them. They had their own school and their own church. And
how do you know, did you guys keep in touch? How do you know she went on to be a teacher and all of that
I
stuff?
didn't know that until years later, after I had moved away and I went back home to visit. And my sister Opal would tell me, and actually one time when my mother was in the hospital, and we went to the hospital, and Opal told me that old Emma, as we called her, was in the waiting room. And I went in and spoke to her, and she was still the shy old lady. She wouldn't look at you. She would, when she's talking to you, she would look down to glance up at you, and
that's crazy.
It's the same.
That reminded me of something else. This is off topic a little bit. So you talked about last time, we talked about growing up and going to elementary school, and then once we kind of shut everything down, we kept talking, and you mentioned you went back in 1984, 1985, and saw your old house, and your teacher was there.
Yes.
So talk a little about that. Okay,
Miss Ferguson was had been my teacher, and when I was in the, I guess you would call middle school, 6th, 7th grade, she was the math teacher, and we were a class of young kids that was full of energy and everything. And she would try to make you behave, and she would look at you and blink her eyes and fix her mouth, pout her lips and look so stern. But we just laughed it off. That was Miss Ludi.
But then Miss Ludi went and moved into your house.
Yes.
That's the other weird thing, right?
Yes, and we drove by to see, was it Linda and Tricia? No. Just Tricia, and we went by and showed her the house, and this old lady came out and
who would have had to been how old at that point?
She was almost 100
Okay.
then.
Right. And you go back and she's living in your
And
childhood
she's
home.
alone. She never was married.
Right.
And but she came out and I told her who I was. And she said, a lot of kids come by and see her. And
That's crazy. Okay. So I have a list of a bunch of other things that we need to get through to kind of cover what we talked about last time. So Miss Ludi was one of them. Got that. Let's talk about let's see. So one of the questions, I was super, super interested in learning about just how what your house was like and how you lived without modern conveniences. And one of the things we did not talk about was, like, what about, you obviously didn't have showers for running water, right?
right.
So did you have like a bathtub? Was it like how did that work?
Well, the doctor who had lived in the house before we moved in, that we rented from him, there was a bathtub, there was a bathroom, a bathtub, and a sink, and we didn't have running water. It was there, I suppose, but we didn't have the money to have it,
Right.
to pay for it.
So you just fill up a tub.
But that was the process in itself.
Yeah.
You had to bring the water in from the well
Right.
that you had pulled up and heat it on the stove and put it in the bathtub.
Right. Oh man.
And to get a little warm water in there if you went that route.
That's crazy.
There was a place for the toilet,
Right.
the commode, but no commode was there.
Right.
But we had the outhouse.
Right. I mentioned
With
that.
morning glories planted around it.
Right. So is that for decoration or is that for
My
fragrance?
mother loved flowers, and it was for decoration.
Okay. Well, that's nice.
Yeah. But it was a nice little walk to go back by the edge of the garden. The fence was up there, and
A nice little walk to the outhouse.
to the outhouse, yes.
Good. What about, like, you wake up in the middle of the night and you have to go to the bathroom?
Do you have to cover this?
We're getting graphic here.
We had to have a chamber pot,
Right.
whatever you called it,
Right.
slop jar, some called it.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay.
Which was
That's all. We don't have to talk about it anymore. It's weird.
I appreciate that.
But it's part. It was part of it. I mean, that was part of life. We don't have to do that anymore. What else? So, talked about when you got your electricity, or your light bulb, really is what it was, and how Opal was afraid of it.
Well, that was. I don't have to say which house it is.
Right. So this is your sister.
It was like, when I was in high school.
Right.
And the house had, it was the house with the bathtub
Okay.
and the sink.
Right.
And there was a back porch.
Right.
You went through the house to the back porch. And then the kitchen was near the back. You went out from the back porch into the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to go down the little hall a little way and into the back porch and then into the kitchen. And into the middle of the room where you had to pull the string from that turned the light bulb on.
Right.
And my sister, older than I was, Opal, was afraid of the dark.
Okay.
And she just didn't want to go, and I would go out and turn the light on for her for whatever she had to go in.
Nice little sister. Okay, what else? So we talked about the setup of the house. You did not have your own bedroom.
No, nor did we have a living room.
Right?
Every room was a bedroom.
Right? Did you have your own bed?
No, I slept with my mom.
For how long?
Forever.
Forever.
I never had a bedroom to myself as long as I lived
That's great.
in that town until I graduated from high school and moved on.
Right. That's crazy. So you mentioned a lot of this stuff, which you talked to me about, and it seems nuts to me. But I mean, how much of it were you aware of, like, this is kind of a crazy thing that I have to do, or this is a really crazy way of living, and how much of it was just like, this is normal life? You know? So, like, having to share a bed with your mom up until through high school, did other kids have to do that? How common do you think that was?
I have no idea. As far as, we never discussed it.
So for you, it's like, this is just a normal thing.
Yeah, you go to bed. That's where I slept.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see what else. Oh, so we talked last time about when your dad died and you got your shoes, and so there's a couple things that I wanted to touch on with that. One of them is we talked about it afterwards a little bit, like you got a little choked up about it. And my thing when I asked you kind of why that was, my impression was that it was just the generosity. It was your teacher, right, that gave you the shoes?
Yes, and now I feel so bad that had to happen.
Right.
That they would be so kind.
Right. But the other thing I asked you about, were you sad because you were getting choked up? Was it because you were just remembering your father? Was it because of the generosity? And you said that it was just kind of because of that had to happen, like the kind of like the sorriness of it, right?
Yeah.
And that to me is just, it's crazy that even after all of these years, like that stuff still sticks with you. It's just,
it's so real.
Right. That was really it. I just wanted to kind of clarify that because I thought that was interesting. Let's see, a couple of other things. Whoa, one more thing with the shoes we forgot about. So, sorry. So, at that point, you have these 2 new pairs of shoes.
They brought 2 pairs of shoes to see which one might fit better, and they took.
You got 1 new pair of shoes.
Yeah.
So, how many pairs of shoes did you own as that child?
Well, I had 1 pair.
1 pair. That was it.
Yeah.
How many pairs of shoes?
I had a pair of one pair.
I was asked to ask this question. How many pairs of shoes do you own now? Ballpark it for me.
I have no idea. I have a lot of
50,
shoes.
100? How many do you think?
I don't know. It's not. I'm not taking the blame for all that. I have 4 daughters. They know I like shoes. And as old as I am now, I've had a few years to collect them.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, we got the shoes out of the way. One of the other things...
There's one more thing about the shoes you might be interested in. This was when I must have been about 10 or 11. And it was rainy weather and had been raining and was muddy, and I was supposed to go to school, and I didn't have any boots. They didn't make boots for little children then, I suppose, but I had no galoshes. Do you know what a galosha?
Like you slip them over top of
yes,
right.
Okay. Well, my mother had very small feet. She was short, and I was the tall one, and my feet were bigger, of course. And so when I started to school, she knew I was going to end up with wet shoes on and socks. And so she said, wear my shoes. So I put them on. They were called Cuban heels, little lace-up black shoes with probably 1 inch and 3/4 or maybe 2-inch high heel on her shoes. But they fit me. It was okay. And her galoshes fit her shoes. So I wore them to school.
Had to wear mom's galoshes.
Wore mom's, but it looked weird. And I was self-conscious. So I wore them, wore the galoshes all day so that the kids wouldn't see me wearing my mother's shoes.
That's great. Even now. Okay, cool. We talked about Oh, mentioned something about your mom's role, sort of like the town doctor, the town nurse. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, that was earlier than she didn't have to do that anymore. That was with the older children.
Okay.
And she was the doctor's favorite helper. And when he would have to go to see somebody, he would many times call for her to go, and she would ride with him in his wagon to treat a patient. He had no hospital. You didn't go to the doctor's office. You called the doctor, and he came.
Right.
So.
Talk about the wolf.
Well, we had one of my older sisters had a boyfriend who was a hunter. He was also a deputy sheriff, and he had been hunting, and they killed a wolf, and then they realized that wolf had 3 babies, and so they brought the little puppies home, and he gave my sister one. And she brought it home, and it looked just like a little puppy.
Right.
And we gave it a bottle and fed it and let it grow up, and I played with it, and it was like a dog.
Right.
And until it was grown, and it started chasing our chickens. And that was great fun. He would chase the chicken and kill it.
Right.
And there would be another one, and he would chase that one and kill that one.
So wait, was this a problem or is this a good thing?
This was a problem.
Okay.
Because if he was not tied up all the time then.
Right.
And he would kill the neighbor's chickens as well, or whatever he felt. So we started keeping him tied all the time. We said chained, and I don't remember if there was a chain actually chained or if it was a rope was tied to a tree.
Right.
But I remember taking food out to him, and he got to where he would take it from me before I was ready to set it down. And we knew that it would not be safe to have him loose anymore, so my sister took him to the next little town, Columbia, and where they had some type of zoo.
Oh.
Maybe it was Monroe. Columbia wouldn't have had a zoo. And gave him there. Huh. And years after that, she did go by one time and called his name Rex.
Right.
And she thought he recognized her. I'm sure he did.
That's neat. So you had Rex the wolf.
Yes, we did.
What about the other animals? Did they have names too? The cows and...
Well, I was the youngest in the family, so they let me. We got a cow, and we named her Lady Jane.
Lady Jane the cow.
Yes, Lady Jane was a big old dumb cow, the one that I had to walk to the one house a mile to the pasture, and
before school.
Before school,
where you got in trouble with the principal.
Yes, because I was late.
Okay, and that was in high school, right?
And then we got another. I don't recall why we got another one, but we got another one, a Jersey cow. This was very good if you had very rich milk. Okay. Jersey cows, a little smaller and younger. And so we had 2 cows to milk then. And I gave her the name Liza Jane.
Okay.
I like Jane.
I see that. How many of your daughters are named Jane?
No, I didn't. When Lib was born, I was going to name her Jane, Elizabeth Jane, and I had a friend who had a child 3 days before me, and she named her child Elizabeth Jane. And so naturally I had to go with something else.
What did you go with?
Elizabeth Pinckney.
That's right.
I'm glad you know that.
Okay, so we have our cows now.
Okay, and here's something you might like to know. In milking the cows, you put their feed in their trough, and they march them little selves in to start eating, and then you can milk them. Pull up your little stool, and you can milk them comfortably. Well, that would be Lady Jane. Liza Jane didn't like that so much, and she was very sensitive, and when you touched her, she would kick. And we had to Opal had to do that. She was older. She took the high-strung one, shall we say. And she would put kickers. You know what they are? I guess is it the hamstring back of the knee?
Okay.
Where there's a vein there that you can put a hook over.
Okay.
And you had two hooks that were connected, and with a rope or something in between, and you hooked them on each side of the back of the legs, and then she couldn't kick.
Right.
Because when you started milking her, she kicked.
So she'd put the kickers on.
Yes, and that worked. I never had to do that.
Okay. Any other cow milking stories that you'd like to share?
I think that's enough.
I think that's enough. Okay, so we want to talk a little bit about high school life. So first, let's go with, you mentioned you were the taller one, right?
Yeah.
Which led to your basketball career in high school, correct?
Yes.
All right. So talk about that. Talk about playing basketball. What was your high school's name?
Grayson Agricultural High School.
Okay.
Not all of them were agricultural.
Got it. And so you were on the basketball team?
Yes,
All right. Talk about that. Did you have like tryouts and stuff? Or you just go in and you're like, we'll take her.
If you're big enough to play basketball and you like it, you're on the team.
Why?
Yeah.
Why did you what led you to? Had you played basketball before?
It was something to do. No, it was. I never played basketball, but once they introduced it, and that it was already there when I was there. My sisters had played. Some of my sisters had played a little bit, but yeah, I loved it. It was we had 3 division.
Mm-hmm.
You know what that is?
You
had the 2 goal ends, and there was a section in the middle, center.
Right.
And I was assigned to there. That's where you touch the ball off. And I was one of the tall ones, so I could tip it off to whoever was there. And I didn't shoot goals. I was a guard.
Okay. Did you do that all 4 years?
Yes, I did.
Any other sports or anything? Extracurricular activities?
Nothing like basketball. I was a cheerleader for the boys team.
Did that kind of stuff, so like the extracurriculars, so cheerleading and basketball, does that interfere with other parts of life? Or is that just, okay, she's going to play basketball, no problem?
Oh, no problem.
I mean, like, you're up so early taking the cows to the pasture, and then you got to, be at school. Does doing something like that, which I imagine is just for fun.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Does that have any interference with other parts of living, of life?
I don't remember that it did.
So your mom wasn't like, you need to be home by this time or whatever to play? Or
well, we practiced after school, and of course you had to walk home. You got home before dark when you had to get home and get the cow milked.
Right. So you still are. Life is dictated by milking the cows. Okay, so we talked about basketball. I think we started talking about this after we kind of shut everything down last time. You talked about dating in high school. Is that right? We kind of talked about.
Did we talk about that?
So how does it work? So if a boy asks you out.
Oh, well, I did mention that. I would have to go home and ask my mom until I was old enough. She'd let me make my decisions.
Right. So walk me through the process. So you're at school someday, handsome young boy comes up and says, "Do you want to go?" What would you do? What is he asking you out to do?
Well, Friday nights were usually date nights, of course. And It was big time at the boys' football. They had a football team, and after the games, we would have like little parties. One guy had a guitar, and we would have cookouts. Oh, and this guy, I have to tell you about him, Bill. We all the girls always thought he was so cute, but he never dated any of us. He never asked us out, and so we didn't know why. Until many years later, when I went home, they said, "Oh, Bill was gay," and didn't even occur to us
Right.
that he might have been.
That's great. What? When did you find that out? Like when you said many years later? Because in high school, we should also get an idea of dates and that sort of thing. So at this point, high school is between the years of what, 34 and 38?
Yes.
That sound right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so you said so many years later you found out that Bill is gay. When was that?
Well, it would have been a few years after I had been away from Grayson, and I would go home to visit. And at that reunion, we did discuss that too.
So what other? So back up, and talk a little bit about the process of being asked out. That's what we kind of talked about last time, which I thought was interesting because nowadays something like that happens and it's instant, right? We text,
Of course.
You text your boyfriend or girlfriend, you call your mom, and it's an instant thing.
Right.
But here, you're at school, he's like, hey, you want to go out to the party after the football game or whatever?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, and we could hardly get through our classes because we looked forward to that so much.
So.
And we would go, usually, always, several of us would go, several couples would go to one place.
Okay, so you get asked out, and then you have to go home, ask your mom. She has to say yes or no. Did she ever say no?
Hardly ever.
Yeah.
She was very lenient with me, and
Yeah.
and I had the older brother too that also he was in high school at the same time, and if we went to the same place, if I could talk him into going to a place where there was dancing or something, that's a big plus.
Right. So you get permission, then you go back to school the next day and say, yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Was there ever a case where a boy asked you out and you didn't want to go out with him, and you're like, oh yeah, I go home and ask my mom. And you come back and you're like, oh yeah, mom said no, sorry.
No, I don't think I did that
that
one, but
okay. So go ahead. Got something else?
more about dating.
Sure, yeah. What about these parties? That's
Well,
what I want to
okay,
know.
we used to, there was no place for us to go to dance, but we liked to dance. We would go to one person's house, and the parents would roll up the rug and turn the radio on or a record player.
Mm-hmm.
And it was wonderful.
What kind of music are we dancing to?
We had mostly, I guess, waltzes or foxtrot, whatever that the music at that time was not jitterbug.
Can you remember the names of any of the musicians or the bands or the songs?
Well, it was Bing Crosby's, the ballads, and who else can I think of right now? There was a lot of cowboy music, but
What do you mean by cowboy
we didn't
music?
like the Western. The cowboy music, the Western music, was like hillbilly stuff, we thought.
Right.
And we didn't, it was not popular with us.
Right. Cowboy music, hillbilly music, Bing Crosby, anything else, any other sort of music you can think of from around
Well,
that
I
time?
loved music, and we did have music in school. We had I was going to say county, but forgive me, it's parish. A parish representative to come and teach music, probably once a month or something like that. They had she would come around and listen to us. We were singing, and she said to me, "Do you know you're singing alto?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, how did you know you're harmonizing to this music? How did you know that you're doing that?" And I said, "I sing with my sisters at home all the time." And I did. We used to do that. They were always singing, and so.
So what kind of songs were they that you would be singing with your sisters?
My Wild Irish Rose, church hymns that had good harmony. And
Did you play any instruments?
no, I tried. We had an organ.
Piano, organ, okay.
We had an organ that you pedaled.
Right.
And I never learned to play with two hands. I could pick out tunes easily. And I played one when I was very small. I picked out a tune and played it, a church hymn,
Right.
Nothing But the Blood of Jesus.
Remember that.
And I played it on the black notes only. And that was quite an accomplishment. They told me at that time.
Can you play any instruments now? Like, did you learn any later in life?
No.
Okay. Anything else? So wait, the parties were always, are these like supervised at parents' house or kids' houses? The parties
Well,
that we're talking about?
we didn't have big parties. We wouldn't have 2 or 3 couples would be about to dance in somebody's living room.
Right, I guess.
And you had a Coke, a Coca-Cola,
Right.
and
No alcohol.
no alcohol.
Okay. Were there bars and drinking and things like that in the town where you lived?
No, we had no bars.
What about like bootleg liquor and whiskey?
But not for the high school.
Well, yeah.
There
Not
must have
really
been
for the high school, but there were people drinking around that time.
a few.
Okay.
I didn't.
Right. You talked about, I don't know who mentioned this. What is it called? Jake leg. Somebody has Jake leg. Is that right? Can we
Yes.
talk about what that is?
Yes, I know that was.
What is that?
Well, there was a guy in town that used to walk kind of funny. He would slink his foot forward before he'd step down on it, or that's the description I would say it was. And they said he had Jake leg.
Right.
And that was from drinking some kind of beer that it affected him.
Right. Drinking that.
Did you look that up?
I don't remember who said something. I don't know if it was you or if it was Trisha, but it was, yeah. That stuck with me.
That's what it was.
That's like the Prohibition era, drinking that bootleg whiskey or beer or whatever. Yeah. Let's see. Anything else that sticks out from... Go ahead.
Okay, in high school?
Yeah.
And we had the sports, but we also had music.
Mm-hmm.
And we sang we had quartets. We had a girls' quartet. I sang bass. Mm-hmm. We had a mixed quartet, and I sang alto. Mm-hmm. And my brother sang bass.
Right.
And we had the girls and the boys and the mixed quartets. Mm. And we had competition. Right. We had a piano teacher in school that we had regular practice sessions, and you got out of class to go get to sing. What could be more fun than that?
Right.
And then we went to North Louisiana competition. Mm-hmm. And we did place first in a couple of them. And we got little bronze medals with the year on it.
Do you remember the songs that you sang in the quartets?
Yes, the girls sang Beautiful Dreamer. Mm-hmm. And the boys sang The Little Stream of Duna.
I don't know that one.
When we went to Europe one time, and we went to Austria, and then to I can't think of where we went. But there was this, where did we go that was, we went on the train and got stopped, hungry. And there was a stream called Duna.
Oh, that's crazy.
And it fit
Like, I know
perfectly. And I said, we used to sing that. Oh, funny, huh?
That's great. Any other weird or just normal, any kind of high school other memories that you can think of? Do you feel like, looking back, do you feel like it was a good experience? Do you have good memories of that? Is it of high school, of just growing up, until you moved away?
Oh, it was good.
Yeah.
It was a fun time for us.
Yeah.
In our own little area. Our basketball teams did go to we played other cities, and we'd go on a bus or, and to the football too. And being a cheerleader, they always took the cheerleaders to the boys' games.
Is that traveling with school? Was that your first experience, sort of getting out of town? Because I mean, you're not going on summer vacations. To
yes,
the beach,
that would have been
right?
right. No, we didn't go on vacation.
So this was were those
one of the
first
highlights of
Right.
being out of going to another city.
How far away did you travel? Would you say when you were growing up?
Those games would be like an hour or two drive, not too far.
So this was in the 30s, which is kind of Great Depression time.
Yes.
Did you have any awareness of what the country was going through at that point, or are you're so kind of insulated in your town, and you guys were as poor as you were, as poor as the town was, I guess. Do you feel like the Depression had any sort of impact, or do you feel now as coming out of that, I don't know, do you feel that growing up that way impacted you, for the rest of your life? You know what I mean?
Well, we saw things. We had hobos. Mm-hmm. Did I mention those before?
Talk about the hobos.
When we lived in the one house by the railroad track, we could see the train go as they went by, and some of them were long locomotives, and there were passenger trains and mail trains. Railroads were a big thing at that time for transportation and for business, and we could see them, and we were close enough that the train would stop near our town to take water. And when it was stopped, the hobos, men without jobs that were searching for jobs, would have been riding those trains, empty boxcars, for hours and days.
Right.
And they would be hungry and looking for work, and they would jump off that train and run across the little path to our house. And the one or two guys usually would come and knock on your door, and they would want, could you have a bite to eat? And my mother always found something, some kind of leftovers, to make them some kind of sandwich or a plate of something, and
Right.
they would sit on our back step and eat, and hurry and eat it,
Right.
and leave. And my mother then would scald those plates because she didn't know who they were.
Right.
They looked terrible,
Right.
with beards. And
Right. What about the hobo code? Is that a thing where you
Well,
leave signs?
yes,
You know what I mean?
and we didn't know it at the time, but we found out later that the houses where they were given food, they would leave some kind of chalk mark
So
for
the
the
hobos
next person.
would leave the hobos would leave the chalk mark. It's not something that like your mom was like we're hobo friendly. Come on over and have a plate of food.
No.
Right. Okay, so the hobos had their own sneaky sort of thing.
Yeah.
How would you have found out about that?
Well, I don't know. Somebody told me later that that's how they did it. They would mark on the trail to go to the house or whatever.
So that's sort of the question was, about an awareness of the depression. That's the appearance of hobos in your town. That was something that.
Yes, but I have to tell you about one that when we were watching the train, my brother and I, and there was a person on top of the train. The train was moving, and he was walking on top of the train and jumping from one car to the other one, and he fell through.
Oh my God!
And after the train went,
right.
My brother went down to the track, and he was taken to a hospital. From somebody found him after this, and took him to the hospital. But my brother and his friend found a finger with nail polish on it.
That's crazy.
It happened.
That's crazy. Trains.
You think I'd forget that?
I don't know how you forget that. It's nuts.
No, it was a man. But his pinky.
Pinky with nail polish.
Yeah.
Wonder what that's all about.
Yeah.
Weird.
So, and I did ask, later, we didn't hear anymore. You don't get instant news. They took him to another town that had a hospital.
Right.
But he survived.
Wow.
He was okay.
Wow. That's crazy.
Oh.
Any other sort of depression kind of stuff that sticks with you? Or was that it? Maybe you just didn't have any kind of awareness at that point.
Yes, I did. I mean, we knew that the banks were closed and that people didn't have any money. It didn't affect us that much. We lost our house, the money that we had put down. We couldn't keep payments on it, so we didn't own anything. But we hadn't had anything before then.
Right.
So this is high school. This is during the Depression, and Grayson was the town that had where the train stopped and got the water, and the big railroad crossing there. And it was in 1937 and 38.
Right.
They built a tomato packing shed by the tracks. And the farmers would bring in their tomatoes in their trucks or wagons, and they had packing stands for young people to go in and pack the tomatoes. They would put them in big bins, and they had all the young people in the town had jobs during the summer after in the tomato season. And they would have, they'd load the tomatoes in the big bins, and there was a stand for you to reach over and pick up a tomato with your right hand. And on the left side, there was a little stand with sheets of tissues, squares of tissues. And you take the tissue with the left hand and put the tomato in it and close it up on your hand and put it down in the box, a crate that was built in the stand. And you lined them up, pick them up, wrap it, put it down, pick it up until there were about probably 10 or 12 rows, probably 18 inches wide.
Right.
And you packed that full, and then you lifted it to the table that was built. It was a long table, but the side of several of these stands, it would be like 8 or 10, I don't remember how many, of people standing with their bins and their next bin, and they would pack them. Then there would be a man stand there, a young guy, who would pick up the top of the crate, put it on, nail it down, and put it in the boxcar. It was built like that. And you got paid by the number of boxes that you packed for the day. And you got paid a nickel.
Why do you think you remember that? Like, that's
It was fun to do.
Oh, you were working there?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. I wasn't clear about that. All right, so you were working there. That
I
makes
was one of
sense.
the...
Okay, that was one of your jobs.
And
you got paid a
it
nickel.
lasted for about 2 weeks.
Okay. And it was fun.
It was lots of fun.
Packing tomatoes. The end of the tomato season. A couple other sort of like Depression era questions. So I think other people who have come out of that time period, like things stick with you, right? So I've heard stories about, people's grandparents reusing Ziploc bags, like washing the plastic bags and reusing them, right? Because of the waste of it.
When do you think we had a Ziploc?
I'm not saying that you had Ziploc bags back then. I'm just saying that
kind
it's that
of thing.
sort of mindset, right? That
Yeah.
you reuse that sort of stuff. You can't just go buy other ones. There's another, I don't remember the name of it, but I know it's out there on YouTube. There's a video, or like a video series of a woman who lived in the Depression. She must have been in her 90s when they were recording the videos. And she would record, she would show recipes that they made from the Great Depression kind of time frame with the minimal ingredients that they had, that sort of thing. And it's interesting that it was cool, one, that she remembered that, but also it's interesting just to kind of see that stuff still sticks with her. Are there any other things that you can think of that kind of stick with you throughout that?
Well, we certainly did have canning season. And we canned tomatoes and everything from the garden. And what we couldn't can, my mother dried. She had dried apples, and I don't know how she did that, but we had an apple tree. And
is there any of the stuff from back then that is let's talk about the food, like the recipes and that sort of thing. Are there any things that you remember from your childhood or just from growing up then that still stick with you now, that like you still would make the same way? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can you think of anything like that?
My mother didn't have a recipe book. She just knew how much to put in. She'd just dip some flour and put it in a bowl, and she'd pour a little baking soda in her hand to see how much she wanted for the amount of flour that she had taken out.
Right.
And they didn't use spices like we have now.
Right.
And
just because they weren't available or they're expensive?
I don't know. I don't know if other people had them, but my mom didn't have them. But she baked good cakes and pies, and she was a good cook.
Anything else that you can remember from that sort of time period? High school and Depression era, that kind of stuff. Anything else that sticks out as being out of the ordinary, I guess?
What else?
You didn't have dresses when you won that singing competition. You couldn't keep on going, could you? And that would be a sign of it, I would think.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right?
That I was affected in that way. That
So tell
we
that story
had
then.
like in school we had a beauty contest, the whole school, and everybody, each class nominated their candidate, and by writing it on a piece of paper and dropping it in, so I was supposed to represent my class, but I didn't have anything to wear that I thought was appropriate. I only had my few dresses that I wore to school. And so I went to my neighbor, the Sorrells, in the big white house that was near us. And I only knew them because I had seen them there. We'd see them coming and going. And there was one lady who was grown. I thought was old, but she was probably 25.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and asked her if she had a dress I could borrow to wear in the beauty contest. And of course, it didn't fit right, but I wore it. But I didn't win. And, we made, my mother and my sisters made our clothes. Opal made my dress to the mother-daughter banquet.
Nice. With the sewing machine where you have like the thing at the bottom.
Yes,
right,
the pedal.
The pedal, right?
Treadle. They called it treadle.
Treadle.
What's
Okay.
the difference?
I don't know.
Yes, and she made my dress for that.
Right.
And, graduation.
Okay.
So graduation came, and we had big news I forgot to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Our school burned my junior year, I think it was.
Burned down?
Burned to the ground in the summer.
Oh my God.
And we started school in churches.
Mm.
We had 3 churches in town, and I don't know if there might have been another business office somewhere for one of the grades. But that was when Miss Ludy taught me.
Right.
And we were in a church and in the Sunday school room, and we had the big congregation,
Right.
And that was terrible. But they were building our school,
Right.
a new school, and by the time we graduated, my class graduated, we were in the new school.
Oh,
And we had bathrooms,
big deal.
and we had a new gym, and our senior class wanted to have a graduation dance, but we weren't allowed to use the auditorium, the gym room, because our high heels might scratch the
Right.
floor for the basketball team.
Right. So what did you do?
We didn't have one.
Uh,
We got to our graduation class. We marched down the auditorium, and up onto the stage. One chair was empty. One of my best friends, Lozelle Gregory, didn't show up because she got married that night.
got married the night of high school graduation?
Yes.
And you
It was
specifically remember
unreal.
that empty chair. That's great.
And so we sat a chair in that semicircle on the stage for Lozelle.
How many people were in your graduating class then?
I think 23.
Wow. That's crazy.
The year before that, there had been 30-something. I don't know what the difference.
That's great. Anything else about high school or graduation that you want to talk about? I like how you forget the small detail that your high school burnt
I
down,
know.
right?
I know. That's like I forgot all that stuff
no
that
big deal.
happened. All
Yeah.
that stuff that happened in 1927, and I thought, oh, that was the year of the flood.
Right. So, so let's talk about this will be the last thing, I think, and then we'll kind of wrap it up for today. But so we didn't talk about that. So talk a little bit about the flood of 1927. This is obviously before high school. You were 7 years old, 6.5, 7 years old, right?
Right.
So talk about that.
Well, I don't remember too much other than it had been a very rainy season, and everybody was waiting to see if the levee was going to hold in Vicksburg, Mississippi, and it didn't, and everything was flooded. And personally, I don't have that much memory of how it affected us, but I know it must have been about the time that my one of my older sisters had gone to Vicksburg to be in nursing school right out of high school, And they said the water was so high that you could, instead of driving, you could actually take a boat.
How long do you think that lasted like that?
Well, it lasted a long time because there was so much. It's like that amount of water just.
No place to go.
Yeah, and there was so many animals killed, and they were all when you could drive that road to Mississippi again. There were dead animals and snakes and everything.
Do you remember that?
over. I remember them talking about it. I don't remember seeing that.
Right.
But they also, the place near us called Columbia, where another sister lived, the Washita River was overflowed, and their school was affected. It came up on their school grounds. In our particular place in Grayson, it didn't cover the downtown
Well, that's good. Spared
section
it.
and around our school.
Right. Okay. Anything else you can think of that you missed from last time or that you want to talk about for this time?
Tell me.
Okay, so next time, here's what I'm thinking. So we didn't really do this before, so I'll try to do a little preview. I want to know or give you a heads up about the stuff that I'm going to kind of talk about or want to ask about. So I feel like we're kind of going in chronological order, right, of your life, which is fun. But before we skip ahead to after graduation, maybe next time we can talk about before you were born, like obviously stuff that you don't remember, but stories that you've heard and from research and things that you've done. We can talk a little bit about that stuff.
Okay.
And then after that, we'll just keep moving on. Good?
Okay.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
All right, cool. Thanks. Good for today. So that's it. Episode 2 done. I hope you guys liked it. If you have any questions for me, or if you have any questions that you would like me to ask Graham, shoot me an email, jake@jakepasco.com. If you are listening to this as a podcast, please leave us a review. Let us know what you think. If you're watching it on YouTube, feel free to subscribe, and you'll get notified every time we have a new video, which is just about every week. Thanks for sticking with us. We'll see you next time. Bye.